Hey, it's Mike Hambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting expert interview where I interview successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in our industry to help you learn and grow and to help you grow your business. Today, I'm joined by Tony Javier. He's the owner and founder of Professional Home Buyers, an investor that buys and sells single-family houses in a few different markets. So Tony has expanded into 3 different markets now and plans to expand even more. And to pull that off successfully, it's been critical to build a great team. In fact, there's really no way to pull this off yourself if you're looking to truly build a business. If you've watched or listened to this show for a while, you've heard us talk before about the importance of the difference between using real estate investing as a hobby versus a business. And today, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Tony is going to tell us the importance of building a great team, and he's going to include some advice on how you can do it yourself. Before we get started with Tony, though, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days with rates starting as low as 9%. For more information, call 888-296-1697. B2R Finance makes loans tailored specifically for rental investors. They can help you unlock equity from existing properties so you can get cash to grow your rental portfolio. That's huge, and it opens up lots of opportunities previously not available to rental investors. Need a loan? Call 855-819-4412 or visit b2rfinance.com today. National Real Estate Insurance Group is the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. We'd also like to thank Crestar Funding, Mid-Atlantic IRA, and Renters Warehouse. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Mike, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So you and I are in a mastermind group together and actually just met a few months ago for the first time. And I actually met your manager, or I guess he's the president of your company, who's was very, I think a lot of people there were jealous that you had such a strong kind of person to lead your team. And it's an area where a lot of real estate investors and small businesses, quite frankly, kind of struggle to fill that role of somebody that they can just trust implicitly. But it looks like you've done a good job.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. It's priceless having good people on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is important. So, hey, before we get started talking about team building, why don't you kind of tell us your background about how you got started in real estate investing, and so we can learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, sounds good. So I started in 2001. I was waiting tables going to school, and bought a course on TV called Carlton Sheets. I think most people have probably heard of the no down payment system. So bought that course, spent a couple $100.
Cassette tapes?
No, they just converted to CDs, I believe.
That must have been the year they converted then, yeah.
Yeah. It was 2001, 2002 or so, then they converted it. So yeah, just read up on it, man. I just got infatuated with it. Real estate, as everyone knows, is a great tool. And, when I see opportunity, I act on it. So I'd say within 2 to 3 months, I had my first property under contract. Found my investor at the time, which was my dad, to sign on 2 or 3 of the first properties that I bought. After that, I brought on partners and, still bring on partners to this day, or private lenders, to fund all the deals that I have. So it's just been a progression the last decade and a half of, finding opportunities, building a team, putting it all together, having the systems. And that's really what it's all about. Right now, like you said, I operate in 3 different markets, Wichita, Kansas City, and now I'm in Tampa, Florida, starting a 3rd market. And I couldn't do this without putting together a great team that, that does a lot of the work for me. I'm the visionary, I'm the idea guy, I'm the guy that brings an idea to the table, and then I hand it off to my team, and then they take it and they run with it. So
yeah. So talk about kind of how you evolved to there, because if you've been doing this for 14 years, I'm sure that wasn't always the case, right? You started off doing this. I mean, you were a one-man band for a little while, I assume.
Yeah, yeah. When I brought my sister on, she said, "I don't know how you did all this yourself." I mean, I was doing the marketing, I was doing the Craigslist ads, I was doing the acquisitions, I was doing the bookkeeping. I mean, you name it, I was doing it.
Yeah.
So
And how long was it
what
like
I
that
decided
for?
to do
How long was it
was
like
that.
that for, where you were kind of doing everything yourself?
Oh gosh, hired my first assistant probably in 2006 or 2007. So
Okay.
probably 6 years. I did it pretty much all myself.
Yeah. Wow.
I had contractors, I had people that I sub things out to, but once I brought my first assistant on, that really changed things. It was just a small amount of things that I didn't want to do that I, kind of pushed on her. Some bookkeeping, some property management, things like that. And I think that's really the key to when you hire people is hire people that are good at what you're weak at, so that you can take those things that you don't want to do or that you're not good at and let them run with it, because they're going to do it a lot better than you and they're going to like it a lot better than you.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, in terms of kind of team building, I mean, where do you start? I think a lot of people. Well, why don't we kind of start here? You said you brought in an assistant first. That's a common question I think a lot of people ask is what's the first person that I should hire in this business? So it's usually like an assistant or a salesperson or somewhere in that regard. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd say an assistant. Just like I did in Tampa when I hired my first person here, I didn't have a title. I basically just said, I'm looking for an assistant, I guess is where the way that I worded it. And I told them everything that I do on a daily basis. And I said, I need you to take a lot of this stuff off my plate. So I hired someone here in Tampa that's similar to my sister in Wichita, where um, she's very sharp. She's someone that can take something and run with it and figure out how to do it. And if she doesn't know how to do it, she asks me a quick question. She'll get back to it and get it knocked out. So my advice would be someone that is very detailed, someone that is very driven, not too driven or they'll want to take over your business, but someone that has managed another company. My sister managed a company before she came on with me. My assistant here managed basically a not a real estate, but an attorney's office where she was doing the marketing, she was doing the books. They would just throw stuff to her, and she was basically their office manager. So I think someone that can take a lot of the day-to-day things off your plate, where you don't have to babysit them. They take it, they run with it, and you don't have to babysit them. I think
Yeah.
that's a big thing.
Yeah, and a lot of I'd say probably, the most successful real estate investors that I know are generally not the types that enjoy the administrative side, the bookkeeping. There's just in this business, there's a lot of paper pushing and a lot of organization that has to happen. And generally speaking, successful real estate investors are more of that. You know, they're out there trying to kill stuff, and that administrative part is a necessary evil, but it's probably not something that you enjoy and probably not even that good at, quite frankly. And so that makes sense that's like the first thing to go.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So where do you go from there? I mean, I think there's a couple lines of thought for real estate investors. Either they try to kind of have this stay small and keep it all mentality, like try to do more themselves and not really farm a lot out. And then there's the I'm going to blow this thing up and launch into multiple markets or do a ton of volume type thing. So I guess for people that are listening to this that are in one of those two camps, what are kind of some of the typical ways they can take it to the next level?
Well, one of the things that really hindered my growth was I was flying in too many different directions. So I guess my advice would be with that first hire is get them trained and get them trained very well. Before you start taking on other ventures, I've done multi-level marketing. I've tried to start a handyman business. I've tried starting there's a mortgage business. I mean, there was all kinds of businesses that I tried to start. And what I realized is that I was doing many things, but I was only doing one thing okay, and the rest of them I was doing really crappy.
Yeah.
So your main focus needs to be on what you do well. Do it very, very, very well. And once you can hand that off to someone else, such as my president or general manager Leon, and my sister Tina, before you start trying to get too wide, find those people, do it very well, and make sure that most of it runs without you before you start chasing other things.
Yeah.
I've seen too many entrepreneurs do that, and they have something that's good and successful, but they don't have it systemized correctly. They go and they venture off into something else, and then their bread and butter, the thing that puts food on their table, ends up going away.
Right.
So I've been wanting to do this for a long time, come to Tampa, Florida, and do other markets and things. But until I could get that set up very well, there's no way I could be here if I was worrying about what was going on back in Wichita.
Right, right. So I think there's a couple things that a lot of real estate investors and really all small businesses worry about in terms of building a team. Not worry about, but these are legitimate things. One is, and you made a comment on it a minute ago, is that somebody, they get to a point to where they say, well, I'm doing all the work here and the owner's making all the money, so I'm just going to go do this myself. Just this fear it's a fear of somebody, leaving and becoming your competitor, but it's also a very real issue that you have to kind of face, like, is that person a threat, or do I worry if they really want to do that? Or, and then just generally, the fact that you can't have a lot of redundancy. You really can't, as a small business, you can't afford redundancy. So you have these key people, and if one of them leaves, you probably have to step back in because there's nobody to backfill that immediately. So kind of talk about, those issues.
Yeah. So when I first hired my first assistant, it was a very low wage assistant. When I hired my sister, I basically had to double wages to get her on board. But I did that because I was sick of dealing with, the fluff of people not showing up. And the assistant that was very good for me was good for about a year, and then she ended up falling off. So from a standpoint of keeping good people and making sure that they're not going to go anywhere, I'd say it's 2 or 3 different things. One is pay them what they're worth. The assistant that I had before, in her prime, she was worth more. She had some personal issues that whether I paid her more or not, I don't know if they would have been there or not. But she ended up, doing some things that she shouldn't have and kind of got in some trouble. But going back, looking at it, there were some things that I probably would see now that I didn't see then that probably would have been red flags. So when I hire people now, they have to fit into our culture. And that's the second part of it, is you have to create an environment where people like to go, people like to work. It's a positive environment. People can be creative. You can give them jobs, and you're not, looking over their shoulders. We have tracking measures that I have them send me every week just to kind of do checks and balances. But when you hire good people and you put them into a good culture and you pay them what they're worth, that really goes a long way. So if you can do those 2 or 3 things, I think you're really, really heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I know personally for myself lately, I guess, so we own multiple businesses, all kind of in the real estate space. And I guess early, some of this is a business maturity issue, I guess. But for a long time, I just looked at employees, not that I guess subconsciously is more of the way I thought this is, and that employees were a necessary evil, and I just need people to do their job. And I believe much more now in the importance of making people feel like they're part of something much bigger. Not making them feel that way, actually truly living that, like having them be part of something, let them have a lot more control over decisions that are made, which has been hard as a control. A lot of us as small business owners, we're kind of control freaks, right? You're like, I've said this before, like, hey, if I ever bought a McDonald's franchise, like nobody would be able to fry the fries as good as me, but but I got a business to run, right? So I think lately I've kind of started to give that stuff away, and it's allowed people to have ownership because I'm allowing them to make more decisions. And so I think, not to say that, hey, follow what I've done, but it was a maturity thing. It took me a long time to get over that hump of just having an employee versus somebody that can really be a part of our kind of team here.
Yeah, I really try and empower my employees. I'll give them small projects that they can handle. I try not to overwhelm them.
Yeah.
But I'll let them make a lot of decisions. Like, for instance, they sent me a link to properties today that are comparable to one we're getting ready to put on the market. And I still like to have my hands on that a little bit. I want to make sure they're not too far off in their pricing. And they were going back and forth and asking my opinion. I said, you know what, you guys deal with it. You're, $5,000-$10,000 apart on where you want to price it. I trust your opinion. You guys get together and make the decision. Yeah. And when I do that, it really makes them feel like a part of the process. And when you get to hiring your first people, speaking of buying in and processes, you really don't have to have a lot of processes in place when you hire your first person. You want to, but if you hire the right person, really they can put those processes in place. And by empowering them to and making them part of the process, they're really going to buy into those processes once they start implementing them. So really giving them, like you said, just giving them as much as you can of being a part of it, letting them know that you trust them. That was one of the big mistakes. In fact, I lost 2 employees one time because they were chatting back and forth on some kind of Insta chat. It was years ago when they had some kind of weird chat room. And I happened to pull up their computer and noticed they were talking about me. And looking, at that time, I'm like, whatever, I'm not that way. But looking back, I was really like on them. I was like, what are you getting done? What's going on? Instead of, how's your day? How can I help you? How can I, get you to grow, and really caring about them? Because once you care about them and you empower them, they'll do about anything for you.
Yeah, no, I found that as well. I think it's tough to get to that point because especially if you're used to for years doing a lot of the stuff yourself, you inherently believe that your way was always the right way and it's probably the only way. Yeah. But I think it's a maturity issue. It was for me to realize that not only is my way not necessarily the right way, that some of the decisions that I kind of held so close to my vest didn't really matter if a different decision was made. It was like just a big part of, this business is just making a decision, right? Just being decisive. And so it's like, yeah, sometimes people make decisions. I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, that's not what I would do. But ultimately, if it empowers them, makes them feel a part of it, and I don't have to do that anymore, and it makes everybody happier, and it doesn't really impact the bottom line, then, you need to give more of that stuff away.
Yeah. Actually, I heard a good analysis one time. I think it was a book I read, and they compared it to like a rock star. I think they were talking about the Rolling Stones or someone, and they said they did, like 100 shows in 1 year. And if they had to go to every city, do the marketing themselves, set up the stage themselves, worry about all the details and planning. I'm talking about the rock stars themselves.
Right.
They would only be able to do what, handful of shows a year.
Right.
All of that themselves.
Yeah.
But having a team that can just automate that process and do it over and over and over, they can concentrate on what they do best. And
right.
they can make, 10, 20, 30, 40 times as much money by having that team in place that just takes the system, puts it in place, and then just repeats it over and over and over.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Cool, man. So tell me about the other side of that is this fear of that somebody is going to learn how to do it and then go out on their own and kind of take your secret sauce. I mean, I know that's a fear that a lot of real estate investors have. So talk about that.
Well, I'm not really afraid of that in my business right now because we have a really good culture and everyone really buys into it. When we bring someone into the business, we have multiple people interview, make sure that they're a part of the culture. And if we hire them and they ended up not fitting, they're gone. I mean, like that. You can really tell very easily if they fit in. Now, if you're a new business and you're just now hiring your first person, how they interact with you is probably how you can tell whether they're the right person. Do you have to tell them all the time to do something? You have to tell them, be on top of them. Is it hard holding a conversation with them? Does it flow? Because, I've had people in the past that have been in my business where, I needed them to come up with the answers. It wasn't come to me for the answers. I'm hiring you for that.
Right.
So you can really tell in a short amount of time whether someone really is working well with you. Now, is that person going to take and run and do what you do? Chances are pretty slim. There's not very many people like you and I, Mike, and some of the callers on here, or listeners rather, that really have the drive to do their own thing. A lot of people are 9-to-5 people. They want to go. They want to get a steady paycheck. They want to make their steady salary, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But there's not a lot of people out there, percentage-wise, that really want to go out there and do what you do. And if they do, then they're probably going to go out and do it rather than work for you. So
sure.
I haven't seen that very many times. I know it does happen, but usually you can tell those personalities pretty quickly if they're asking for a raise really quickly, if they're asking for bonuses really quickly, if they're wanting to take in the beginning rather than Leon, for instance, he has been for the last year and a half has been give, and now he's finally earning extra bonuses and incentives on top of that we put in place for him. If I would have started that in the beginning and if he would have said, hey, I want this and I want that in the beginning, that's the kind of guy that's going to take your business and run with it.
Yeah.
So those are good signs that, someone's in for it for themselves rather than for the whole team.
Right. So talk about a little bit about the importance of systems. So a lot of, and you've been doing this long enough. I mean, you've been doing this longer than me, and I see just an amazing difference at the quality of systems and tools and things that are out there today versus even like 3 or 4 years ago. And just talk about how that has kind of changed the ability to build a team, and it helps you kind of manage things without being there easier today than it did, in years past. But just maybe talk about the role of systems in your business.
I think that's probably, obviously there's money and some other things, but I would say processes and systems are probably 90%, I'm just throwing that number out there, 90% of failures of businesses. Because you can go to places and they have really good food, they have a really good product, they have whatever it is that they offer is really good, but sometimes it's the people that are working in their business that fail. But really, it's like you said McDonald's earlier. If you have a really good process in place, and whether you put it in place or whether your assistant puts it in place, it doesn't matter. If you have a good process in place, you can take most decent people off the street, put them in your business, and they can run a decent part of your business without having much of an education or much experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have those processes and systems in place, not only can you not hire very efficiently, but you're going to have a lot of leakage. We'll do over 60 houses this year, and there are a lot of little details that go into that. There's marketing. There's weekly marketing that we do that we have a process for. There's acquisitions. When my acquisitions manager goes out and looks at properties, he has a spreadsheet that he punches his numbers into. He has the contract that he uses that we formatted for him. He's got negotiating scripts that he uses. When he puts it under contract, he sends another process is he sends the contract as well as the numbers and pictures to Leon and I for approval. And then after it's approved, then it goes to our transaction coordinator. She's got a checklist, which is another process or another system. Then it goes through the renovation, getting bids, budgets. We have a whole system for that. So, if you look at a transaction, there's probably 100 things that you could look at and say, I could put some kind of a system or checklist in place for this process. If you were to just do that on a whim, every time you bought a house, which I did and you probably did when you first started, it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort. But if you can systemize that, without processes and systems, I would be spending 30, 40, 50, 60 hours in a project. Now I spend probably 30 minutes in a project.
Yeah.
So that just kind of gives you an idea of what processes and systems can do.
Yeah, and I think as a small business owner, too, it gets rid of some of that fear of, well, I'm just going to train somebody, and then if they leave, then I'm going to have to train them again. And it kind of gives you a lot more comfort that, hey, I don't want this person to leave, but in the event that they do, we can plug somebody in and they can watch our training videos or whatever it is. They can learn how to do what it is we do, and it's kind of systematized now. You don't have this fear of, I will tell you personally, in the past I've had fear of losing somebody because nobody knew how to do things other than that person. And if they left, it would be a pain for me. Now, I also necessarily knew that those people were not necessarily the right people long-term for my business, but I was more fearful of the short-term headaches that would cause by them having all the knowledge in their head of losing them, that I just kept them around, which never ends well either. So, it's a critical piece for sure.
Yeah, I've actually almost lost my business for that reason of not having as many systems in place, as well as hiring the wrong people. Back in, it's probably been 10 years ago, I hired 3 different people, and I made a bunch of mistakes. at that time. So I had an assistant working for me and two brothers that were doing some website work as well as some project management. And what happened was all three of them just fell off the wagon, and all three of them happened to be living in my properties. And so I had to not only evict all of them, but they threatened to take me to court because they weren't making payments and they weren't doing good at their jobs. So they were the wrong people. And then I just had mental overload of having to take on all three of their positions. I didn't have any checklists in place. I didn't have any kind of systems in place. And like you said, if I had those in place, I would have been much more likely and it would have been so much more easy to put an ad on Craigslist or, whatever it was at the time, found that person and had those checklists and said, hey, here's what I need taken care of. Here's the checklist. Just, go take these and run with it. But because of that, I had it all in my head and I thought, man, I have to do all this myself until I can get caught up, and then I can start maybe bringing people in. So hiring the right people that time and having the checklists and processes in place would have kept me from almost losing my business. And I didn't necessarily lose it because of, financial. It was because I just couldn't keep up mentally and physically, with the work that was, that I was taking back on.
Yeah, and there's so many, if there was a kind of checklist-oriented business, this is it, right? There's a lot of repetitive stuff that we do over and over and over again, turning utilities on, putting lock boxes on doors, taking it off, putting in signs, removing signs. There's just this, this list of that's the same thing over and over and over again, depending on what you're doing with the house. So this is actually a fairly easy business to automate, right, or systematize, because we're kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, no doubt. Lots of moving pieces.
Yeah. And easy things to forget too, even if, it's easy to, we used to have questions like, did somebody turn the utilities on at this house? It's like, I don't know, check the folder somewhere, wherever that is. But now there's, tools to just kind of manage all this stuff very easily.
Yeah, and that can cost you a lot of money. If you have contractors that are waiting for you, to turn utilities on, that's a few days of work lost. And then at the end of the job, if you don't get utilities turned off and you go, 3 to 6 months paying someone else's utilities, there's a few hundred bucks out the door on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, Tony, we've got just a couple more minutes here. So tell us any kind of final kind of words of wisdom for people that maybe have been apprehensive to kind of build their team and maybe have the mentality that, well, I'm just going to, it limits you, right? Some people want to be limited. They don't really want to grow. But for somebody that has some fears over building a team, maybe kind of share your thoughts on, how that might be limiting them.
Well, the thing that I did wrong for the first, 10 years, 8 to 10 years, is I tried to do it all myself. Not only physically doing the work myself, but also not looking for outside help. So one of the big things that I would have done back when I got started was find a mentor, someone that I could talk to that could walk me through the process, and would really cut down on a lot of headaches. Real quick example, about 5 or 6 years ago, I took on a mentor, a multi-million-dollar guy worth lots of money. And, I started running deals by him. And one deal that I ran by him, he said, hey, why don't you do this, this, and this? And it saved me $50,000 just on that one deal. And it's those types of things where people have done it before and people have the knowledge. So trying to figure it out yourself just is not the way to do it. You're going to burn yourself out very quickly. So get other people's processes and systems, put them in place, and then find a coach, a mentor, someone that you can talk to on a regular basis to run ideas by them, because you may think you have the right idea, but you run something just like the mastermind that we're in, Mike. We run ideas by those guys all the time, and those ideas they give us save us, tens of thousands of dollars. Yep. So those are the things that I would definitely say for a new person starting out, they definitely need to do.
Awesome. Well, Tony, if folks want to learn more about you, your company, where should they go to check you out?
Yeah, my company's educational business is Real Estate Prodigy. So if you go to getmyprodigy.com, you can sign up for a free account, get a lot of great free information, and kind of learn a little bit more about my business and the processes and systems that we put in place. We offer a lot of those on our site and in the new educational business. So check us out there and get plugged in.
Awesome. Well, hey, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you around. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.